Hi, this is Kevin Riles. Welcome to the Real Estate of Life with Kevin Riles. This week, how do you generate leads to flip properties? I've been getting a lot of calls about that to my office. Everyone's listening to the podcast, which I appreciate, and they want to know how to find opportunities to flip. So we're going to talk about that, give you kind of a roadmap today. So thank you for listening, and hit the music, please.
Support for this program comes from the Digital Broadcasting Network, presenting podcasts and web series from everyday people who have an extraordinary passion to make the world a better place.
Hey, welcome back to the Real Estate of Life with Kevin Riles. This is your host, your humble host, Kevin Riles. I am excited to be back. We took a week off for the Thanksgiving holiday. Actually, I took a week off. Mr. Producer called me and said, hey, do you want to tape? I said, no, you know what? I'm full of turkey right now. I'm out in front of a football game. I'm good. So I took a week off. So, I won't blame that on him. So anyway, long story short, just wanted to talk about a couple things that have been happening in my office. And as a direct result of the podcast. And so, I was at an event. I was sharing with Mr. Producer earlier. I was at an event Wednesday and introduced myself to some folks. All of us had to introduce ourselves. And I had about 3 or 4 people come up to me that I did not know and say, hey, man, I've been wanting to meet you in person. I've been listening to your podcast and had questions about different things. And so, one, that was just very encouraging. And I appreciate you guys listening to my podcast. But 2, the number one question I'm getting, not only from those guys, but also as a result of this podcast and of the e-blast that I send out on a weekly basis. And by the way, if you're interested in receiving my weekly e-blast with all of the multifamily properties that are for sale in the city of Houston, and also the properties that I list, commercial properties, multifamily properties I list, email me at kevin@kevinriles.com, kevin@kevinriles.com. That's the easier email. I have 2 email addresses, but that's the easier one to remember. So it's just kevin@kevinriles.com, and I will add you to my weekly e-blast. It's very popular. It has grown from back in the day from 200. Now I have about 7,500 folks that are on that particular list. And so, and it has legs. Those 7,500 tend to forward it on to other folks and things of that nature. But one of the things I've been asked about, especially since the storm here in Houston, is, hey, Kevin, I want to flip houses. I want to flip Kevin, I want to flip. I think I want to get into flipping. Flip. And so how do I get into flipping? What do I need to do? How do I find opportunities? Can you send me 5 houses I can flip tomorrow? The answer to that last question is no. And typically most flippers will tell you once a house hits the MLS, it's too late, which is not always true, by the way. But and so what I want to do today was kind of tell you how to generate leads for flipping opportunities. Now, let me give you my opinion on flipping. I asked a student the other day at Prairie View, where I teach, what's the difference between being rich and being wealthy? What's the difference between being rich and being wealthy? And no one really had an answer. And this is my definition. Being rich means that you have a lot of cash on hand, right? You have a lot of cash on hand. So you could have $100,000, $200,000, $1 million of cash on hand. But if you know anything about economics and the time value of money, you know that if you just keep that cash value erodes over time because of our economic system and inflation and things of that nature. So that's being rich, right? I'm sure that there are, in the sound of my voice, people that are definitely rich or on their way to being rich. To me, being wealthy is having assets that generate cash on a consistent basis. Being, just from a standpoint of being just truly asset rich, so that you are in a situation where you're generating cash. So long story short, flipping can make you rich, which is nothing wrong with being rich, but I don't think it, and I know it does not make you wealthy. Owning the asset ultimately makes you wealthy. So I say that at the beginning because I think flipping is a great way to generate cash to eventually buy and hold long-term assets. In the same mechanisms I'm going to talk about today to generate flipping opportunities or to for flipping opportunities is the same way I am going to tell you to do that. So to do buying assets, right? So long story short, there are a couple of ways to generate flipping leads. And the first is just generally networking, letting people know that you buy houses. I know all of you have seen those billboards out there that say we buy ugly houses. I won't name the company, but you know who the company is. That is a lead generation mechanism. If someone is driving down the street and they have a situation where they have an ugly house or they have a house they can't sell and they're looking for a solution, then they're going to call that particular billboard. But they also, and some of the best guys I know that do this, and females, by the way, is they network, right? They network. And by the way, I talk about this in my book, 40 Acres and a Mule, the African-American Guide for building wealth in real estate. So I talk about this in some way, shape, or form in that particular book. So you can go to channel713.com on our podcast page and see information about that book. You can also go to kevinriles.com, and it's available on Amazon as well. So just thought I'd throw a little bit of plug in there. Appreciate that, Mr. Producer, for reminding me behind the scenes. And if you were wondering why I was stammering earlier, because he was saying something to me, so I'm just going to go ahead and acknowledge that so he didn't have to cut it. So with that being said, the number one way to generate leads for flipping is networking. Just letting people know that you're in that business. I buy houses. I buy houses. I buy houses. Coworkers, friends, family members, because it is truly a networking opportunity. Someone out there has a problem with a piece of property and they need a solution. And that ultimately, when you flip houses and generate leads, that's ultimately what you're doing. You are providing a solution for a problem. That's what you really need to be thinking of yourself as, is a solution provider, right? Because if you think yourself as a solution provider, then it's, I think, a lot easier for some of you that might be a little shy, don't know what to do. If you can find a problem, you have different solutions. You can wholesale a property, you can flip a property, you can buy a property. You ultimately can help them save a property sometimes if it's not a deal that you want to take advantage of. So the number one way is networking. Number two way, old school door knocking. Old school door knocking. And I would say door knocking, maybe even with flyers or business cards. Find an area that you're interested in cultivating and literally go door to door. Say, hey, I'm a solution provider. I'm a real estate investor. I really love this neighborhood. If you know anyone that's looking to sell their house, here's my card. Here's my flyer, right? Old school, face-to-face, old school door knocking. Go on a Saturday when everybody's outside and just work the neighborhood. May not get anything. You may get a whole lot. I just drove through before we started taping our podcast in the area here that's close to where we tape here in the 3rd Ward area of Houston, because there's an opportunity over there for a client of mine. And I just drove up and down the street looking at lots and looking at things that were going on in the neighborhood. And so if I was a wholesaler or a flipper, I would be trying to knock on doors or see people out and give them my car. You just never know. So old school door knocking is the second way. Here's my secret sauce, which is not really a secret. So I'm giving you one of my marketing secrets, the way I get listings, the way I get apartment complexes to list. Old school direct mail. Old school snail mail, put a stamp on it and send it, all right? I do a mail merge. I download a list of apartment owners in the city of Houston or wherever I'm trying to market. I do a mail merge with in Word. If you don't know how to do that, I'm sure there's someone around you that knows how to do a mail merge with Word. I'll print those letters, and now I send them to a mailer. He folds them, puts them in a envelope, and sends them on my behalf. But before that, and I still have this, I actually bought a letter folder I have in my office. And when I do small mailings, maybe 100 or below, I print those 100 letters out. I send them through my mail folder, and then I usually pay my daughter and her cousins to stuff envelopes for me. That works. People still read their mail. Now, if they're like me, they only read it once a week or maybe once every other week, but they still read their mail. And when you can send a letter that looks personalized directly to someone, they're more apt to use it. So that's how I get a majority of my listings that are not from my referral source, is through direct mail. Either direct mail with letters, which I think are better, or even old school postcards. I know most people sort their mail over the trash. I do as well. But you're surprised how much postcards still work as well. Now, do not think, if you're going to do direct mail, and I need to do a whole podcast, remind me that, Mr. Producer, on direct mail, because there are secrets to that. Do not think you're going to send it out one time and get 50 leads, right? Direct mail does not work like that. If you get a 1% return, you're doing awesome. And I say a 1% return, I mean 1% of people contacting you. Typically, it's lower than that. So there are some secrets and tricks of the trade as far as direct mail is concerned, but direct mail does work. Some people might ask, well, where do I find these lists? You can do as simple as going to in Houston, hcad.org and downloading, a certain zip code, a certain neighborhood. You can contact your realtor to download certain subdivisions. You can also buy lists. There are list brokers online. I've used all of them to buy various lists. No one is perfect. So now the list that I have that I use is kind of a culmination of all those different sources. All right, so direct mail, that's number 3. Number 4, wholesalers. There are people out there that are spending the money to go out and network and do door knocking and use direct mail and use other forms that I'm about to talk in a second. And they're finding opportunities. And for whatever reason, they don't want to own the house. They don't want to do the flipping. They don't want to do the construction on getting the house ready or getting the property ready. And so they will wholesale the property, right? It's wholesaling, meaning that they will get it under contract. And I'm just to use a small example here for $100,000, and then they'll sell you that opportunity or to sign that contract for $10,000 or sometimes $15,000 or sometimes $5,000. So you're buying the property from them for $110,000. They have it under contract for $100,000, so they're making $10,000. Now some people will say, well, I wanted the original deal. I want the $100,000 deal. If you don't have the time, the resources, or the wherewithal to get those deals or the expertise, wholesalers are really a good way to try to find opportunities. As long as you do your due diligence and there's still enough money left in there to do a flip. You don't want to do a flip if you're buying it for $110,000 and it still needs work and it's only worth $115,000. It's only $5,000 worth of equity. But if a wholesaler finds a deal and you're able to get it from them for $110,000 and it's worth $200,000 after you do maybe $20,000 worth of work, then you're basically paying a finder's fee. And so wholesalers are a great mechanism, especially in this market, because that's all they're doing. They're just generating leads. In fact, this list that I'm giving you is the list that they really use to find their opportunities. And so wholesalers are a great way to do that. How do you find wholesalers? Your real estate investment clubs are a great way. In Houston, Real Estate Investment Club of Houston, Lifestyles Unlimited. There's a Build Wealth investment club. If you type in Google investment clubs in your city, whatever city you're in, I'm sure you will find that's one good way to do it. Some of these signs that you see out, as far as I buy houses, my name is Kevin, I buy houses. Calling those folks and say, hey, if you buy houses, I'm looking for houses to buy. So if you have a wholesale deal, give me a call, and getting on those databases. And a lot of those guys have good list and email broadcast lists they do. I'm on about 10 wholesale lists myself. So every day I'm getting an opportunity of a wholesale. Let me also say that not all wholesaler opportunities are good deals. Just because the word wholesaler is there, don't necessarily think a discount. Sometimes they can't negotiate a great deal, but they still try to wholesale it. And so you still have to do your own due diligence, all right? Now, the next thing I'm about to tell you is typically you'll get fined for, but people still do it. So I'm just letting you know. The word is bandit signs. Bandit signs. Bandit signs are those little small signs you see on the side of the road that can be in our eyesores sometimes, especially if there are too many. But they say, I buy houses. We buy ugly houses. I'm Chris the house buyer, whatever the case may be, and they give you a phone number. And so those are bandit signs. You can actually buy those signs and put those up. I have a friend, to remain anonymous, that used to put them up. In the city of Houston, you can get fined. And so during the week, their sign guys are out taking those signs up. So he used to go out on certain corners on Friday late at night, like at midnight, put his signs up on various corners around Houston. And then Sunday at midnight, he would go around and take them back up. So he would have them out over the weekend because that's when more people were out on the roads. Let me say this just for legal purposes. I am not advocating for you to put those out there. I'm not telling you to put those out there. I'm just saying that people do. And I'm winking I'm winking with the wrong eye, sorry. Wink if you're looking at the video. All right. So bandit signs is number, what number are we on? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So bandit signs are 5. Number 6, good old realtors. Yes, good old realtors. There is an occasion where I will get a call And because I'm a solution provider as a real estate broker, and someone will come and say, hey, Kevin, I really want to sell this house. This is my mom's house. We don't want it, or we have back taxes owed on it, or it has issues. It has mold, the roof, whatever the case may be, and I want a quick sale. I don't necessarily want to put it on the market. I need to get it sold. And so I can do one or two things. I can put it on the market, which is what I do, or I can say, hey, yeah, great, not a problem. And I have a list of investors, which I do, that might be interested in this opportunity. And if you don't mind, I'll blast it out to them and see who's interested. Well, that's essentially a method of finding someone to purchase a distressed property so that they can, profit from it. And so at the end of the day, realtors are a really good source of wholesale / flipping opportunities. Now, there's this myth out there, and I want to address this real quick, that I get investors calling me all the time. Usually they've taken a class and they say, Kevin, hi. They say, hey, I heard you in the real estate game and I see your podcast and you're doing all these things, man. I'm really impressed. And I say, thank you. And they say, you know what? I want you to call me only with your off-market opportunities. Your off-market opportunities. And so I said, oh, okay. I said, sometimes I do get off-market opportunities, but they don't mean that they're deals. So there's this myth out there that if it's off-market opportunities, that it's automatically a deal. And I'm looking into the camera and I'm speaking into the mic and telling you now that is not always the case. You still have to do the same level of due diligence. But in some class out there or classes, people say, hey, don't buy anything that's on the MLS or that's publicly available. You only want off-market opportunities. Maybe you should put that like in a little frame and at the very end, like off-market opportunity. Anyway, I'm talking to Mr. Producer. Let me talk back to y'all. So at the end of the day, off-market doesn't necessarily mean a deal, but I understand that people assume that is the case. Sometimes it does, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. So realtors. And then finally, this is one people really overlook. Financial professionals and attorneys are awesome ways to find potential houses to flip or houses to invest in. Why? Who do you usually call if you have a question about what's going to happen if you sell this piece of property financially? You're going to call your CPA, you're going to call your attorney, you're going to call, or if you're getting a divorce, you're going to be dealing with an attorney, or if there's been a death in the family, you're dealing with an estate attorney, right? So financial professionals, professional services folks are an untapped market for potential opportunities for distressed property. And at the end of the day, you're looking for distressed or discounted property to be able to flip. So I've just given you, I'm telling you, the secrets to finding opportunities. They don't all come from realtors, right? I would love it if they did, but they don't all come from realtors. So we should be one source, but there are many sources. So just as a summary, I'm going to go over this list. Networking, door knocking, direct mail, wholesalers, bandit signs, realtors, and financial professionals and attorneys. If you just do that on a consistent basis, take a couple hours a week and pick a couple of those, not even all of them, to just stay in constant communication with or do on a normal basis or a regular basis, I can guarantee you that you will find opportunities for distressed and discounted properties on a consistent basis. You can't just do it for a weekend and not have any results and say, oh well, it doesn't work. This is if you really want to find distressed properties, this is a full-time weekend, after hour, during the day type of job. So I hope that this information will help those of you out there. You can still call me, so I'm not telling you not to call me, but I hope that will give you some ways to try to find opportunities out there so you can do the flipping. I know everybody's watching HGTV and watching the Property Brothers and watching all of these flip Atlanta, flip Houston, flip Dallas, and they're getting excited and they think it's done in 30 minutes. You find the house, you renovate it, and then they show you calculations of how much they're supposed to make, and everybody think flipping works like that. That is not the case, but it does give you a quick window into what it takes. Most of those opportunities that they're talking about take about 60 to 90 days from the time that they identify the property. So I'll do more podcasts on flipping in general. I'm going to bring some investors in here that I know that do flip so they can kind of tell you the tricks of the trade. But as you get ready, one of the things I'm going to do here in December is try to get you prepared for your 2018 real estate and wealth goals. And so this was a first opportunity to be able to do that, is how do I get leads for distressed property? How do I get leads to flip? So thank you again for listening to The Real Estate of Life with Kevin Rouse, and I will see you and talk to you next week. Hey, thanks for listening as always. Do you have questions about any of the topics I'm talking about? If you have questions, let me know. Email me at kevin@kevinriles.com. Again, that's kevin@kevinriles.com. I'm going to do a podcast just on the questions that you guys are sending to me. So feel free to send them to me. Again, that's kevin@kevinriles.com.